hold on. And 3, 2, 1.
It's Danny and Fred. They have a Crip Trip podcast.
This podcast contains strong language and adult themes that may not be suitable for all audiences. Danny and I are in Edmonton chatting over Zoom with Steve Way, who is based in New Jersey.
Hello, ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, they, thems. Welcome to the Crip Trip podcast. We're joined here today with the wonderful, magnanimous Steve Way, production mastermind, disability advocate, prolific actor.
And a great comedian.
And a great comedian. Man of many titles, multi-hyphenate. Thank you so much for joining us here today.
Howdy, how are you?
Not too bad. How are you doing?
I'm a little concerned, for our planet.
Yeah.
It's November 1st. I'm in northern New Jersey, and it's 75 degrees right now.
Mm-hmm.
That's not normal.
Yeah.
So
we went through all of last winter, and we didn't get snowfall in Edmonton, Alberta, which is, very snow city, until January, which was, a bit of a wake-up call.
So, speaking of the date, I've been enjoying your Get Out and Vote videos you've been posting. I think that this is like the most important message right now. Good job. I've been watching them.
no, thank you. Man, it's the simplest thing that you can do as a citizen. I would never tell anyone who to vote for.
Mm-hmm.
Because I always want people to vote with their own interests, right? And I don't know what your best interests are, but that's how you have a voice, right? And at the same time, I always hate it when people complain about politics and government, but they never vote.
Yeah.
And I've done it, And sometimes it feels like your vote doesn't matter, but it does.
Yeah.
That's how you change the policies that affect your day-to-day life. So.
Well, and that's kind of why we wanted to talk to you today, to kind of talk about, the bridging the gap between, art and advocacy, and kind of how they are sometimes like mutually constitutive. I don't know about you, but me personally, I'm always trying to elucidate stories from my community that will help people find the political willpower and wherewithal to try and affect change.
Yeah, there are a lot of layers to that, right? To create fundamental change.
Mm-hmm.
First you have to, decide whether you have that in you.
Yeah.
Not everyone can travel.
Yeah.
Not everyone has the confidence to speak, let alone speak in front of a group of elected officials. And then you have to decide whether you can invest literally years of time.
Mm-hmm.
I've been public speaking since I was 9 years old. I'm almost 34, so I've been doing this a while, right? But I know what I'm doing. I'm confident. And I'm good at it.
Mm-hmm.
Earlier this year, I helped get a bill passed in my state of New Jersey that gave more protections to 50,000 domestic workers.
Yeah.
So the people that take care of you and I.
Yeah.
That took over 3 years.
Mm-hmm.
Right, and for the United States government, that's fast.
Yeah.
And 3 years, fast.
Yeah, and that's something I was hoping to elucidate on Crip Trip, was the time scale that a lot of activism actually runs on, right? It's not some people come into activism with like a savior complex, right? And then they get burnt out on a topic, and then they don't have the wherewithal to like continue through.
We talked about him being multi-hyphenate, actor, comedian. Like, Steve, do you think you could just give us a bit of a background on like where you are in your career and how you got there?
Yeah. I owe it all to my disability. Growing up, I always used comedy as like a coping mechanism, to deal with that. And my friends and my family were always in on it. So it was never really awkward or weird. And when I got to high school, the high school that I went to has a TV studio in the basement. So we always had access to cameras and editing equipment.
Mm.
And that's when my best friend and I, Ramy Youssef, became very close. And we worked together a lot. And when we started high school in 2005, that's when YouTube started.
Mm-hmm.
So we just hit everything together. And the older we got, the better we got. We've been doing this since we were 14 years old. Almost 20 years. So very, very privileged to have had that access. But we're also that good.
Yeah.
Right? Because if you give anyone a camera, doesn't mean they just shoot something good with it.
Exactly.
So when we graduated, when we got into stand-up, he encouraged me to do it. I did that for a couple of years. When we got his show, he wrote me a part, started acting.
Mm-hmm.
So now I'm prepping for my hour stand-up special. Producing 2 movies.
Yeah.
Just wrapping up Good Bad Things.
Loved it, by the way. Fantastic
Thank you.
movie.
We are looking for a home for it. So it's been a solid year of festivals, theatrical run, virtual release, and now trying to get it on a streamer. This is the first time I'm publicly saying this, because you're getting the exclusive here. I just signed on to produce another movie.
Right.
And it's a documentary about disabled people in the Holocaust.
Mm-hmm.
Which I think is something that is very, very relevant today. We always say never again. Right, but what people don't know is that the T4 program, which was designed for disabled people,
Mm-hmm.
was the test run for the Holocaust.
Yeah.
So, I'm really hoping that people, can see, it was obviously this just despicable event of human history, while also understand, just how, again, it's disabled people that were the test subjects, and then afterwards, were forgotten about.
Yeah.
And
It's
that's a microcosm for society.
Yeah. And, right now in Canada, we're dealing with programs like medical assistance in dying, or MAID, that, I think it's quite frequently that, you have a marginalized demographic of some description where they test some heinous thing, right? And then it ends up affecting society in a larger way down the line, right? So this project you're talking about is called Disposable Humanity, right?
Yeah.
And bringing attention to, things like how people treat, you know, their most vulnerable will echo into how they treat mainstream society. And that is one of the, you know, starkest examples that I can think of. You know, this T4 trial program, you know, preempting even the Holocaust. But, you know, it makes you think about where we're headed as a society today with things like, you know, medical assistance in dying, and, you know, how that will eventually broaden its scope. And it's been happening in Canada right now, right?
It's not right that it's easier to get a doctor to kill you than to get some medicine to cure you. This just shouldn't be that way.
Or basic, you know, like home care.
Yeah.
It's harder for me to get a few extra hours of home care than it is for me to kill myself, you know?
It's like a 10-year battle. That'll be well documented, thankfully.
Yeah.
I got a question about, since you're producing so many films, Steve, and you've been involved in TV shows and all this stuff, what are your thoughts on traditional disabled archetypes? And, you know, should we be avoiding those? What are your thoughts on that?
I believe in the power of storytelling. I think we all have a story to tell. And obviously, I think it's important to help those who are marginalized and underrepresented to have their stories told too. Right? Because as a writer and an actor and a comedian, right, I get to tell my own story. And that's something I love doing. I love sharing my story to show people that while I look different and I need help with a lot of stuff, my life isn't that much different from everyone else's. Right, but at the same time, as a producer, I want to help other people tell their stories. Right, so I could use my platform to give other people a platform. No, I think it's important to understand that, you know, we all have one story. So it's important to remember we don't want to co-opt other people's stories. Right? We don't want to take that away from people. We don't want to take away their agency and their freedom. But at the same time, it's not easy. Right? As you all know, this industry kind of sucks. For anyone. For anyone.
Well, yeah, and I was going to ask, like, is there, you know, certain types of stories that you notice that, like, broadcasters want more, or certain narratives that, like, cross your desk and you're like, this isn't doing it for me?
Yeah, they want stories that aren't realistic. They want the stories that will make the audience feel good. You know, when they come home from a day at work where they're being exploited, overworked and underpaid, and then they go scrolling on their phone about how terrible the world is, how they can't afford anything. Right, so it's either you watch Love is Blind, and I'm sure I can give you 17 reasons why I love that show. Or you can watch a narrative show about someone like you or I with a happy ending. That's not our lives. That's not anyone's life, right? But we're the vessel. We're the prop to feed that happy ending to the audience.
And that's how you kind of get into those, you know, inspo porn tropes is, you know, they do want that happy ending, but it is so divorced from reality, which is something, you know, I'm very interested in doing creatively. Sorry, say that one more time.
Yeah. I want a happy ending too. And more ways than one. But, again, is that real life? No. And why is that?
Yeah.
Because society, and government, and capitalism
Yeah.
makes it that way.
Well, and it's interesting you bring this up, right? Like the 8-hour workday, how little resources people have at the end of the day to like come home and watch something
So,
super.
can I challenge you on that?
Yeah, yeah,
I know a lot of people who work a lot more than 8 hours a day.
Mhm.
And they work a lot more than 5 days a week. I feel like that standard is not standard anymore.
yeah, it's true.
And I feel like
I'm freelance. I get it. Like
yeah, dude.
we had a lot of days on Crip Trip, run into like the 18-hour mark, right? And we're all burnt out, right? And like you say, it's just getting worse and worse the more work we expect from.
Of course, I mean, I feel that like our work, we were very privileged to be doing it.
Oh,
And it was mostly fun work, really.
But this concept of how do people affect change when they're so burnt out, right? And how do you get them to sit with very difficult content, right? So this is one thing, we debated a lot when we were making Crip Trip, was how do we make the audience actually engage with my circumstances without their eyes glazing over and them getting jaded instantly, right? So how do you use entertainment, right, as a mechanism to then, give them the medicine that is, these are the circumstances we have to live with.
Entertainment's a powerful force if used properly. I think it can create great change. It's just that it's usually used sort of improperly, creating these false scenarios and false expectations and false stories. But entertainment's great, but entertainment doesn't mean it has to be happy.
Yeah.
I like seeing struggle.
Of course. But at the end of the day, I believe that philosophically, the average person wants two things. They want to relate, and they want to feel something.
Yeah.
Right. It's why I believe the metric of a very good show is characters.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
When you list what the best shows ever made, they'll have strong, well-defined, relatable characters. Right? It doesn't have to have a relatable story.
Mm-hmm.
Like a Breaking Bad,
Yeah.
right? I don't think many people can relate to cooking meth, right? But we can relate to wanting to do what's best for our family.
Yeah.
Right? Wanting to provide for our family.
And mixing chemicals in the back of an RV.
Oh, yeah.
We know all about that.
Oh, yeah, you did that. Yeah, you little fucks.
We can relate to that.
Yeah, but that's what I love so much about the show Ramy.
Mm-hmm.
Ramy basically gave me full control over my character. He would show me a script and say, just rewrite this how you would say it, do this how you would, and the specificity of that, I think, is what makes that show so powerful.
And yeah,
Right.
it is still relatable at the end of the day, right? Like, and deeply funny, very very funny.
and it makes you feel a lot. That's what I think one of the really noticeable things about the show is just the amount of feelings the show gave me from so many scenarios. And yeah, it was because the characters are dynamic.
Yeah, thank you. I mean, I have to give you my top 3 favorite shows of all time. Twin Peaks,
Mm-hmm.
Succession, and The Sopranos. And they all have strong characters.
Yeah. There's
And they're
no
all
one-dimensional people.
right. Right. But that's real life. Right?
I thought the correct answer was The Wire. Isn't it always The Wire?
And we'll always fight against that.
Oh.
Let's fight against that. And listen, when I say my favorite, I say my personal favorite. But I personally believe, and I will die on this hill, that Succession is the greatest written show of all time.
It's good. It's
still need to finish
really
it.
good.
I still need to
It's
finish
great.
it.
I'm preparing for a rewatch. It was the first round happened so
I'm
fast.
doing it now.
You're
I'm doing it now.
I'm planning to start next week.
It holds up. It holds up. But again, it's like, and then take other shows like Seinfeld or It's Always Sunny in Philadelphia. Right, take those two shows and Succession. They're all bad people.
Mm-hmm.
We're not supposed to root for them.
Yeah.
Right, but The Sopranos too.
Yeah.
Right? We're not supposed to root for them.
But still
But there's-
somehow you find New Jersey mobsters relatable, you know? It's like,
I mean, bro, that's...
I mean, you are a New Jersey mobster. I
They literally filmed The Sopranos all around where I grew up. But again, it's like we feel, right? We feel the anger. We feel the violence, the vengeance, right? And we want to be that. We want to be Tony Soprano, right? We want to be Kendall Roy. We want the money. We want the power. But at the same time, we want to be Kramer. You know, we want to be like Dennis or Mouse
mm-hmm.
or Charlie because they're just degenerates,
Yep.
right? They don't care about life. They don't care about anyone but themselves. And that's the escape.
Yeah.
Well, I think
Yeah,
Charlie
it-
has
it-
a heart of gold. Come on. Kitten mittens.
You watch these people, you know, who are just like rot id, especially in Always Sunny, you know, where
I can relate to that.
I can definitely relate to
Yes.
that, right? It's the impulse we try to control, and it's like, what if you didn't?
Right, but to bring us all back,
Mm-hmm.
what Ramy taught me, the person of the show, is that it's okay to be vulnerable.
Mm-hmm.
It's
Yeah.
okay to be honest. It's okay to be raw. And it's okay to make people uncomfortable.
Yeah.
Because that's how they feel.
Was there a standout moment in doing Ramy where you're like, I'm articulating something deeply personal here, or I'm showing something about the disabled community that is, I think disabled people will find relatable. Was there a standout moment during that show where you're like,
I mean,
this one's for the
well,
cripples?
spoiler alert. Yeah, the episode where Ramy jerks me off. And I'd love to tell you the very much story of how that came to be. So before every season, when Ramy's in the writer's room, he will call me up and put me on speakerphone
Mm-hmm.
and ask me a very uncomfortable question.
Yep.
Right, so for season 1, I'm on speakerphone in a room full of writers. Steve, did you ever hook up with a girl who was underage? And I'm like, bro, I'm not answering that. I'm season 2. Steve, do you jerk off? And I'm like, well, no. And he says, because your hands don't work, right? He said, yeah, it's been a while. And he says, it's totally seriously, have you ever thought about asking me to do it for you? And I was like, you know, man, There probably was a time where I was so desperate. I said, you know what? Ramy would do it. And he said, "Well, great, we're going to do that on the show." But I love it because when that aired, I got so many messages from people in the disabled community,
Yeah.
like, thanking me for showing that.
That's amazing.
And being like,
amazing.
you made me comfortable to finally talk about this struggle.
Mm-hmm.
And it's like, that's changed. To bring it all back from the beginning,
Yeah.
in this conversation, that's fundamental change.
Yeah.
I love that anecdote so much. That's my favorite anecdote I've ever heard in my life, man. Wow.
And you know, it's bringing light to those stories where you know, you had an interesting process even bringing it to fruition, right? Like a random phone call where it's tabled, and then you do something genuinely cool and vulnerable with it, and then that makes it relatable for more people.
I had a bit of a selfish question. We'd been chatting before the podcast, and you know, in Crip Trip, I'm sort of the able-bodied friend, right? And yet, in reality, I'm somewhat I have disabilities, right? On paper, I do. I have
in
lots
real
of
life.
medical issues in real life, you know, and I feel very. I don't feel comfortable using the word disability or disabled with myself because, you know, yeah, I've got exhaustion and all these things, but then I go to a rock climbing gym and it just feels like that's the ultimate able-bodied expression. Yet I am, you know, and what do you have any advice on how to think about that? And like, it's kind of new and I don't know how to use the words to describe it.
Yeah. But I first want to say that I appreciate you saying that because it's a very vulnerable thing to talk about.
Yeah.
So truly, I admire you for being open about that. You know, and I hope that you to take a step back and appreciate yourself for that.
I have never been comfortable talking about any of my health issues ever. I always want to be a paragon of fitness. And now there's just so many things have piled up. I'm like, and now that we're doing things like Crip Trip, it's like, it's time to just be honest. You know, it's time.
Yeah, because
like,
it is taxing, right? And
It is
you
taxing.
have new capacities that you have to
but
deal with.
we're filming a show where you're seeing me at capacity and you're seeing my limitations. And now it's going to be nationally broadcast. So it's like, I have nothing to gain by hiding, you know, from my disabilities. It's just, I don't know how to talk about them because I feel ungenuine about it, you know?
Well, first of all, it's not about gain or a loss, right? Again, it's your story. It's your identity. It's who you are. You know, for someone like me, I don't have a choice, right? So I have to lean into it. It's who I made myself who I am. Right? This is my job. It's my career. I just even launched a production company, right, to help tell disabled stories, to elevate disabled creators and performers, because that's my mission. That's the mission I took on because of my lived experiences. Now, when you say that, like, you feel almost hypocritical, disability does not exist in a vacuum. It exists on a spectrum. Where disability is all over the place. I cannot feed myself. I can't walk. Right, but I'm a movie producer. I'm an award-winning movie producer. Right? Who else, like me, is doing that, right?
Yeah.
And so when you argue that movie producing is exclusive to non-disabled people, it's something like rock climbing, I see people with no indifference all the time.
Yeah.
Fred, I'm sorry, you're not special. You can't get that out of your head.
No, I mean, I feel weird because Danny comes to the rock climbing gym with me a lot, and it's like, I wish
I sit there and watch him fall, and I'm like, man, I would have thought I saw some, functional improvement by now, but like he's still just falling on his ass constantly, and I'm like, okay, at least I get coffee out of it. Really, that's
Yeah, you should. But you gotta say, Fred, I'm sure that Danny can do things that you can't.
Oh, for sure. Yeah.
Right, you don't know.
Like, think.
well, even that's getting more challenging over the years. But yeah, it's about like, staying in your lane. It's when you fulcrum your disability to talk over other disabled people who have like a more inline experience, right? Like I deal a lot with chronically ill communities, right? But my chronic illness is pretty stable, right? Like I'm not needing to do a lot of stuff to like manage it. So like I have some of that experience, but I don't have all of it, in the same way that a lot of chronically ill people aren't, functionally segregated out of buildings, right? So the real problems to me with, people weaponizing their own identification as disabled comes when they're using it to talk over other people, right? So making sure that we're just keeping those avenues open. But I kind of want to wrap things up here.
Yeah, and I just wanted to point out that, like, I think that that's what you're saying is probably the next big conversation, as we're seeing this renaissance in the disabled space. I think the next conversation now is that nuanced conversation. I think it's going to be coming soon.
Yeah, and it's making sure that we're not losing things to like lateral ableism along the way, and all the rest of it. But yeah. So I guess I'll just close out with this last question. Steve, what are some improvements you'd like to see in, film or comedy, in writers' rooms or broadcast pitch meetings to fundamentally change the industry? What's an easy fix that would make things more accessible, do you think?
Just give us the opportunity. Just give us the chance to prove ourselves. Because we will.
Yeah.
Right? We are good enough. We're better. I think. But a lot of times we're not even allowed in the room.
Yeah.
We're not given a seat at the table. And that's not fair.
Yeah.
I mean, a lot of us have earned it more than a lot of other people. But most people don't look like you and I.
Yeah.
So it's hard to get past that. But just one day at a time. It takes a long time, but
We get one wheel in the door, and then we keep the door open, right, Steve?
somewhere.
Absolutely. Well, thank you so much for joining us here today.
I miss hanging out with you, man. We got to do some projects right away so we can all work together again.
Oh, we have to. We have to.
We're working on it.
Absolutely. Okay. Thank you so much.
Bye.
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 Watch on AMI-TV or stream for free on AMI+.
TVO, Media Education Group. Catapult Pictures. Looking for more Crip Trip? Stream the series now on AMI+.